Please welcome to the stage Rondi Eng and Matthew Bradley.
Nice audience.
Thank you, and welcome all. It's great to see so many of you again this year. This year, we have an amazing set of new generative AI demos and announcements we cannot wait to show you in this conference. Now, for those of you who are relatively new to us, allow me to spend a moment to tell you a little bit about our Fusion customer ecosystem. Fusion Cloud ERP has been on the market for about 12 years, with over 10,000 global customers out there. More than 9,000 of them have gone live at least once. Many of them have gone through multiple rounds of expansion, and many of them have been live completely on SaaS for many, many years. More than 50% of Fortune 500 companies run Fusion Cloud ERP. And at the same time, when you look at all these top global brands on the screen, we have very great adoption across many, many key industry segments, especially in the services-based industries. Now, our customers include 6 of the top 10 US banks, 4 of the top 5 global companies in telecommunications. We have 4 of the top 5 US food services companies. We have 6 of the top 6 hotel chains in the world, as well as 9 of the top 10 US healthcare systems. I can go on and on and on. We are also getting very, very good traction and growth in the product-based industries as well, thanks to kind of our growing maturity and robustness in our supply chain suite, and many of our customers moving from right to left, starting from finance, EPM, and growing more and more into supply chain management. We at Oracle are very grateful for all of you customers running your businesses on Fusion. It's been a great partnership to support your successful go-lives over the years. We are very, very grateful of all the help and all the guidance that you help us, shaping all the improvements and continuous innovations, which have proven to be great value to all of us in the Fusion ecosystem. Now, many of you will ask me, so what's next for Oracle? One question that I got the most over the last 12 months is, what is Oracle's ERP's Gen AI strategy? So to start with, our customers are always interested in the back office to get more with less, to achieve more with less, best operational efficiencies. So in finance, it's about not spending 80% of your time and resources on mundane activities like processing transactions or closing the books, but really still maintain a very high degree of integrity, compliance, and robustness in your financial numbers. But beyond that, it's all about having the best data and insights to support the business, like growth opportunities, to continue to assist like a true co-pilot of the business. And that's what they want to spend 80% of the time on. Now, with Fusion Cloud ERP, as well as a lot of the traditional machine learning and AI capabilities, many of our customers have achieved lots and lots of efficiency, insight, and even actually decision support and executing the actions on a timely basis. Gen AI is taking it to a whole new level, okay? So let me actually try to get into each of these a little bit more and tell you what that means. So first, touchless operations. So this is all about taking the complexity on human intervention of kind of your processing of transactions and closing the periods. Now, as I said before, many of our customers following our current best practices have already achieved a lot of automation. But there's still a couple of areas that we think that we can even bring more automation to them. Now, one of which is when our customers transact with a third-party trading partners, like a customer or supplier or your bank, your logistic company, or even actually government agencies. Now, trying to onboard a full end-to-end electronic transaction processing with one of these third parties is a lot of complexity, is a lot of effort. Now, on the other hand, you still have some trading partners still actually sending you emails, spreadsheets, PDF files, images, or even paper quote in handwritten form. Now, kind of like, and everything in between. Now, announcing in this conference, brand new, a Gen AI-based document I/O AI agent, which will enable a turnkey and touchless onboarding as well as processing of electronic transaction processing. And that will actually help you across any electronic channels, any electronic standards, formats, and even languages. Really cutting down a lot of the onboarding as well as the processing complexity dramatically. So let's take a look at the first demo.
This demo shows how AI agents in Oracle Cloud ERP can help drive secure, touchless automation of procure-to-pay processes. It starts with James, a sales VP in Japan, who urgently needs to purchase video production services. He takes a picture of the vendor's handwritten quote and emails it to the Document I/O AI agent. Because the agent understands the business context and works with an industry-leading LLM to extract the relevant information from the attachment and email, Document I/O can take the next step and create a purchase requisition. The buyer receives a notification to review the requisition. He sees the original descriptions in Japanese as well as the English translation. Document I/O also generates charge account codes based on information and related details from the email. For the sub-account, the agent has insufficient confidence in the value predicted by AI and requests confirmation. The buyer verifies that the sub-account is correct and submits the requisition. Video production goes well. James confirms receipt of services, and the supplier sends an invoice which triggers a workflow in accounts payables. In the Payable Manager screen, we see that the Document I/O agent automatically processes invoices in a variety of file and document formats. The Payables Manager receives a notification in relation to 3 invoices from a new supplier that was recently onboarded. Document I/O processes the invoices despite the supplier using a new file format. However, 2 attributes require review. The Payables Manager reviews the ship-to address, and the predicted section is highlighted in the XML file. The company has receiving points. The correct ship-to address is proposed, and she is able to confirm the selection based on the 9-digit zip code. The line description is generated by the agent based on information from both the purchase order and the invoice file. She also accepts the proposed description. The invoice is now complete. The other 2 invoices leverage the new mapping, and the transactions are also successfully processed. A new insight highlights an early payment discount opportunity. The Payables Manager immediately initiates the payment. She notices that the supplier requested a special format for the payment. The Document I/O agent generates the new payment format and remittance advice based on the template provided by the supplier. She reviews the payment instructions and the remittance advice that have been generated and submits the payment for approval. And that's it. By capturing and generating documents, the Document I/O AI agent enables secure and highly automated processes.
So, what you have just seen are just a few examples of how this new Document I/O AI agents simplifies and automates electronic document processing. Few use cases from self-service, where actually, in this particular case, a purchase requisition was created with just the context of some emails, as well as a handwritten paper quote in Japanese. Now, all the way to a professional touchless payables operations, where it automates not just the onboarding, but the end-to-end processing of electronic invoicing inbound to the system, and payments and payment instructions outbound of the system. So simplifying your IT infrastructure, really cutting down a lot of the human manual labors, but more importantly, really reducing your shared services investments in here. Now, I talk about a couple of big areas. The second area that we are very focusing on is how we automate the rest of daily financial operational activities. Now, when you think about a lot of finance accounting professionals, when they come to work every single day, they're relying on BI operational dashboards or BI reports to churn through a lot of numbers to identify some exceptions and anomalies. Many times, they put it all in Excel, do some massaging of the numbers, and finally come up with some adjustment, true-up journal entries, or accrual journal entries. Now, with a new Gen AI-based ledger agent that we're introducing in this conference, not only this ledger agent will help you to monitor and even alert you when some of these exceptions and anomalies are going to occur, it also actually provides the user a natural language way to access all the supporting details, all the way into the transactions, without any IT creating any custom reports. And then at the end of the day, it also is leveraging the document I/O that I talked about earlier to create these journal entries, the true-up journal entries, with just a few words and a few clicks. So really changing the experience and productivity in the accounting world. Okay, let's take a look at a second demo.
Janet, the US accounting manager, receives an alert about a revenue forecast variance for $13 million, 3 days from the end of quarter. The alert takes her to the ledger agent, which provides quick access to accounting activities and supporting details. The agent automatically highlights the radiology equipment line of business as the biggest contributor to the variance. Instead of sifting through reports and spreadsheets hunting for information, Janet interacts with the agent in natural language to get instant insight into the forecast. She instructs the ledger agent to create true-up accrual for the unshipped orders. No more manual journals via spreadsheets. The Doc.io agent automatically generates the journal entry. Janet submits the true-up journal to reflect the latest positions for FP&A stakeholders.
Now, all Fusion Gen AI use cases that we are showing you, announcing in this particular conference, leverage the latest, most current, the best industry-leading large language models out there. And this is all done through our OCI services. As you know, Oracle is unique where we also have a tech business that's fully supporting our applications businesses. Our OCI development team is working with all the best LLM vendors out there to make sure that they have the best LLMs available for the applications development use cases. There may be different ones for different use cases. Now, the other advantage of our OCI services is whenever there's a new technology change, a new LLM that's better for the job, we will just, as an application development organization, automatically the changes. So our customers don't have to see a big change management. Our developers will be able to make use of the latest and greatest all the time. Now, the other thing that I want to highlight there is, in Oracle, our customers' privacy and data privacy is always our #1 priority. We never ever use your data as a customer to train any public large language models for any other purposes, like, for example, a third party or for another customer. Your training, your data is always localized in your own environment, and this is a commitment from Oracle to all of our customers. All these Fusion generative AI use cases are embedded directly and everywhere in Fusion. So what that means is, if you're a Fusion customer, you can opt in to turn on these Gen AI capabilities when they become available to you through the quarterly release update process, or at no extra cost.
Great. Thanks, Randy. We're now going to switch our attention and look at FP&A and how generative AI and machine learning can actually help in that domain. For those who aren't familiar with FP&A, its primary function is to maximize the performance of an organization, leveraging financial and operational data in order to make more informed decisions. It sounds relatively easy, but it's got a couple of major challenges. One is, when can I get access to the data? And is the data of sufficient quality that I can actually leverage it to make an informed decision? And then two, how do I then take that data and plan and forecast and change and pivot as the business conditions demand us as we go forward? One of the challenges that we see with FP&A groups is that we're spending too much time on the analysis side in trying to get access to that data, and not enough time on the forecasting, driving the organization forward from a strategic standpoint. So with generative AI, we're looking to change some of those particular challenges and try to address them. In our next vignette that we'll have a look at, we're actually, imagine it's towards the end of a quarter, and we're trying to produce the quarterly business report. How can we leverage generative AI to get us a first draft of that report quicker and faster than we currently do today? So with that, let's roll the next demo.
We're switching context to the financial planning and analysis function now. In this part of the demo, we'll see how Oracle GenAI helps FP&A Director David stay ahead in preparing for their quarterly business review narrative report. When David comes into work, he gets a few alerts and business insights from GenAI. One of them relates to accrual accounting entries from the ledger agent. In the narrative reporting app, GenAI has already prepared a draft of the QBR report using last quarter's template with Q2 data and details filled in. David browses through the GenAI draft of the QBR. It looks good with tight narrative text and the right visuals to tell the story. With that said, one of the insights points to shipment delays at the Berlin plant. David's management will want to know more about this operational issue, so he adds another section to the report. He adds the insight as a context for the new section. He tells Oracle GenAI to add a chart because a picture is worth 1,000 words. AI has generated both narrative and imagery. David is happy with the text, but he wants a different visual as the bar chart looks a little boring. GenAI offers some good choices. David goes with the bubble chart as it shows both shipment delays and associated dollar values. This new visual is much better. You can clearly see that the Berlin plant has a problem. There's lots of red in the last few weeks, with high-value orders getting backed up. David is happy with the new section in the report. In this brief demo, you've seen how Oracle GenAI has made the FP&A much more productive. No more fire drills over the weekend, putting the finance user very much in the driver's seat. FP&A stays ahead thanks to Oracle AI.
Great. So what you've seen there is the ability to generate a draft fairly quickly based upon the latest up-to-date information that's been generated out of the transactional systems. You've actually seen a demonstration of two agents inside this demo. One is the contextual data exploration agent that's really moving from these insights that have been automatically generated by the system and finding additional ad hoc and supporting information on that. And then the data visualization agent, which took a chart and a graph and displayed it in the most appropriate fashion for the data that's underlying that particular request. We're adding in financial intelligence. We understand the difference between flow and balance. We understand time as a construct, that December is followed by January, that a fiscal year is different from a calendar year, and understanding the entire context of what's required in order to achieve this. All of the AI that you've seen is actually operating against the source data. We're not transporting it, changing the shape of it, and trying to do anything clever with that data. We want to leverage the full context that you've applied inside of your configuration. What is the semantic? What is the meaning of this data in your terms so you can interact with that data in terms of vocabulary that you know and understand. Very personalized for you as an organization. And as Ronnie mentioned before, we want to respect the privacy of that information. We will not share your data with any other LMMs for other purposes. We won't share the data with Oracle. We won't share the data with any other customer. We would expect the full confidentiality of that data. Additionally, because we're building these on the core source systems, we'll actually respect the security that you've put in place internal to your organization. So if you do not have access to a certain cost center, you can't get an insight on that. If you do not have access to a certain portion of the chart of accounts, you will not get insights. You won't be able to generate text around those particular pieces. Security is our #1 priority that we have at Oracle, and we want to ensure that your very valuable asset, your data, is protected from that standpoint. One of the advantages of making these embedded inside of the core applications is it makes it relatively simple to turn on and use. Insights have been available in the EPM space for several years now. We'd encourage you all to turn it on and see what the machines can actually do for you to be able to move things forward quicker and faster and find these insights and make these important decisions in a much more timely fashion. So with that, we'll actually jump to another use case, which is the second challenge that we had in place. The first use case was trying to address getting access to information and being able to produce these drafts and do the analysis quicker and faster. The second use case is more focused on, now we've got that in place, can I pivot? Can I forecast? Can I replan? Can I leverage this rich data robustness that we have, this increase in data accuracy, to do some forecasting and planning? So with that, why don't we roll the last demo?
In this demo, David wants to start focusing on the next quarter. He's in the Planning app, where we can get a forward-looking view of business forecasts and AI-generated predictions for Q3. These AI prediction models are driven by continuous, clean data from the touchless processing of transactions. They are very granular and make use of all available data, financial and operational, internal as well as external. The medical consumables business has predicted revenue shortfall here. He clicks on the related insight to explore this further. GenAI has prepared a narrative and visual which shows there is an ongoing issue through the quarter. The narrative also guides him with some detail. The problem seems to be with a subset of product categories. David uses GenAI to dig into the category-level renewal predictions. You're not looking at actuals here. These are detailed predictions from multivariate AI models using both internal and external factors. PCR consumables is driving 85% of the predicted revenue gap in this case. On the left, you can see that GenAI is also giving some pointers on related issues. David wants to explore correlated insights that shows the factors that might be related to this revenue shortfall. Oracle AI is at work. Oracle GenAI provides details on two factors: internal supply issues affecting product output and a decrease in external demand due to a drop in COVID-related hospitalizations. These correlated insights are very powerful in helping finance users get the full picture, and they're very important in gaining their trust. With a much better understanding of the issue, David chats with his colleagues about adding this topic to the next sales and operations planning meeting, and he asks GenAI to schedule a prep meeting for next week. In this section of the demo, you have seen how AI prediction models and GenAI insights have given FP&A timely views on business outcomes and improved their ability to course correct. David was able to proactively identify a potential revenue shortfall, understand the details of the issue, and begin collaborating across functional lines to make informed decisions. That's the power of AI at work.
Okay. So we've been doing predictions in our planning application for several years. What we're demonstrating you today is our advanced prediction agent, the ability to take financial data, operational data like the supply chain information, as well as data from third-party external sources, bring those together and actually come up with a correlated or multivariate style forecast, increasing the level of sophistication and the level of accuracy that we can actually address through our forecasting capabilities. The other piece that you would see throughout this particular demonstration, again, is how we can interact, how we can explain, and how we can actually help organizations join the dots in terms of where the decisions need to be taking place. But an important fact in both this demo and all of the prior demos is that the human is in charge. We're making a suggestion that the forecast could be X, but the human, based upon that data input and based upon the input they have as being experts in this space, can override that. Very similarly in the prior demonstration, when you've seen the text that was generated, the human is still in the loop. They can add their context into that. They can add their expertise into those particular elements in making sure that you arrive at a much more informed decision, but arrive at a decision that you are responsible for. You just have more data points in order to make that decision even more impactful and better from that particular standpoint. Now, armed with all of these insights and armed with these predictions, the next step in an organization is how do we then connect from finance to the rest of the organization and the operations inside the organization, and then with our trading partners outside the organization.
Yeah, so one thing to add to what Matt described, for those of you who are more tech and AI savvy in the crowd here, we are not just using the best LLMs out there in the market. We're leveraging a retrieval augmented generation, RAG in short, to really bring the fusion and your enterprise business context. So those are kind of examples like, for example, your fusion enterprise structure, your chart of accounts, your security rules, or any custom document templates that you might have defined in the system. Bring all of that to the LLM, such that you can generate much more of a timely, contextual, as well as much more accurate response of the LLM. Now, like what Matthew said earlier, after all of these predictive insights, now finance and FP&A, can now really focus on how they can provide timely and contextual collaboration and support to these lines of businesses. So one thing that our customers have been doing, and also actually very interested, is in the area of leveraging our AI predictive cash forecasting capabilities to help on driving working capital optimization. So in particular, in the area where you need to pay the supplier with different options, for example, different payment terms, offering dynamic discounting, or kind of even exploring some of the credit-based services. For example, virtual credit card, or kind of using supply chain financing, and so on and so forth. So here, there's a new Gen AI-based payments agent, which allows you to service all these payment opportunities, looking at potential return on investments, as well as even helping you to execute these payment options via the banks that we partner with. Now, 2 years ago in this particular conference, we announced Oracle B2B. It's a select set of partnership with some of the top global banks, logistics companies, digital service providers, who also happen to run their own businesses on Fusion. Now, the idea here is to embed these partners' core business services directly from within Fusion, such that we can create turnkey activation of these services, or creating some very differentiating value and experiences for our joint customers on Fusion, as well as on the low-end side with the NetSuite customers as well. So starting with 2 years ago, our partnership announcement with JP Morgan, as well as with Federal Express, last year we announced the partnership with MasterCard and HSBC. A lot of progress has been made, in particular in the financial services space on embedded banking services. Over 100 customers are now live or in the middle of implementing, adopting these new services. So that includes like turnkey banking activation and connectivity, debit-based type payments into AP and AR, standard cash management, and also, we have rolled out a bunch of credit card services. For example, you can use the JP Morgan T&E card with our touchless expenses applications or virtual credit card. They are all production with live customers right now. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see there are a lot more banks joining the program, and there will be a lot more that we'll be announcing in 2025 as well. We are planning to release 11 separate AI agents across core ERP and EPM, with all the capabilities that you see on the screen in here. As a matter of fact, a few of these capabilities have already been in the current production release of Fusion 24C. Now, keep in mind that 100% of our customers are on exactly the same version of the software, the latest software of Fusion, every single quarter. And 100% of our customers can turn on and opt in to these Gen AI capabilities whenever they become available, or at no extra cost.
So with that, in terms of how you actually get ready to realize the true value of artificial intelligence, it's our opinion that you need a true SaaS. Artificial intelligence, especially in the LMM space, is evolving rapidly. There are new versions coming out every day in terms of advancing the feature set that's available there. And by leveraging our continuous innovation with our quarterly update cadence, it means you can keep pace with those innovations and have those be available to you. If you compare that to, say, an on-premise style solution, you'll do an upgrade, and then 5 years later, you get another version of your LLM. So in order to take advantage of that, you're going to have to shift to a true SaaS model. The same applies for a hosted model. The same applies for a private cloud model. The only way you can gain access to the innovations is to be on a true SaaS with the quarterly cadence update that we have in place for Fusion going forward, and it always have been since our initial inception. The other key thing that's extremely important as well, because you're all running the same version, there are shared experiences. What one customer learns can then be shared with the rest of the ecosystem. So it's really leveraging the mass that we have in place with all of those particular use cases. Compare that to, say, an on-premise world where everybody's running a different version. Even if you learn something new from one customer, you may not be able to apply it in your environment until you've done that upgrade to the same version that they are potentially on. So we are seeing some tremendous values of being part and parcel of a true SaaS offering from that perspective. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on.
Well, quite a few customers have been asking us all the time, can they do just a lift and shift from their on-premise business processes over to SaaS, and then maybe to apply some of the RPA or process mining technology to get to kind of some of the automation that we talked about before. Now, my answer is pretty simple. You can actually leverage those tools to a certain extent, but your process at the back end, kind of from the legacy platform environment, generally are not that optimal anyway. From all of the successful customers who have deployed SaaS over the years, we know that many of them have a very robust transformation program behind the scene. They always follow the simplified, standardized, and automate paradigm, looking at all the processes, making sure that they try to be as standard as possible, but also at the same time looking at the data that they bring in, such that kind of the data anomalies and the exceptions are no longer the case. Now, many of these customers, after they've gone live for a little while, have evolved into much more of a refinement, optimize, as well as continuous adoption of the innovations. Yeah, so this is a continuous journey. Clearly, a lot of our customers are doing it right, and there are lots and lots of things that we have learned from these, and now it's becoming a new way of constructing our best practices. Now, Matt, kind of with all the Gen AI capabilities that we are rolling out, how do you see that we are evolving our recommendations to our customers then?
So the recommendations is really to bake it into your plans. If you've not started the journey to cloud, start the journey. These are game-changing style capabilities. And the longer you leave it, the further behind you'll be from productivity gains, from increase in accuracy, and all the benefits that you'll hopefully realize by applying the technologies that we've put in place. We're encouraging you to chat with your systems integrator and put an emphasis on the data. Plan this in as part of your journey and plan it in from day one. Don't plan it in further downstream. Generative AI, machine learning are all part and parcel of data science. If the data is not correct, you're going to get an answer, but it mightn't be an answer you want from generative AI. So really encourage you to really look at the data and make sure that's part and parcel of this particular journey and plan that in from day one as part of your implementation. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is to focus on outcomes. What productivity gains are you expecting to get from generative AI? Make sure they're measurable, make sure they're put in place, so you can then demonstrate to your organization the value that you unlocked for them by adopting generative AI and machine learning. You do that for productivity gains, do that for more nebulous things like the value of an increased forecast accuracy, and make sure those are in place and part and parcel of your culture as you actually move it forward. Now, we've mentioned our quarterly updates, our continuous innovation. Again, this is a big difference from the on-premise world. It's no longer about celebrating the go live. It's good to celebrate, but you want to have more celebrations. You want to continue to unlock the value that you've done in the investment in SaaS. And that requires a cultural shift internally, identifying who your change agents are, who's responsible for looking at opportunities to uptake the new capabilities that we're rolling out on the quarterly cadence, and what's the right way to be structured in order to be effective around that particular piece. This is not a case of we go live and we never ever tweak or refine or update the application on a go-forward basis. We're responsible for taking care of the technical debt. We make sure in the latest, greatest version of the underlying software, make sure it's compliant with all the regulations that are in place, etc. But you are responsible for addressing functional debt. Here's a series of feature functions you've just not taken advantage of that you should take advantage of as you move forward with your implementation. So with that, what I'd like to do is actually introduce our guest on stage. I'd like you to welcome David Hostadius from Hurst.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, David.
Good to see you again.
It's good to get a sit down. So David, we've known you for a while, but the audience may not necessarily know much about David, or may not necessarily know much about Hurst. So why don't you introduce yourself and introduce the audience to Hurst?
Sure. So my name is David Ostadius. and I work for Hurst Communications, and we don't really go to market under the Hurst brand. We're a very diversified media company. It was started 137 years ago in a newspaper business. You can kind of split up our overall company into kind of two parts. One is a business to consumer, advertising-driven, traditional media businesses, television, newspapers, magazines. And then the other side of the business is more of a B2B information services and software business. So that's kind of how we look at it. And then we are also partners with Disney. We own 20% of ESPN, and we're a 50-50 partner with Disney on A&E networks. So my job, my role, is I do what we call finance operations, and I try to tell people there's usually three buckets in my work. One is we have a service center down in Charlotte, North Carolina, with people, having fingers on keyboards, doing back-end processes on behalf of our businesses. I have a team that probably is out here, some of them, that maintain all of our Oracle Cloud finance applications that we use not just for corporate, but for the rest of the businesses as well. And then the third leg of the stool, so to speak, is I tend to get involved with transformational activities or other initiatives around the company. So that's kind of my world.
Great. Big world. Now, you started your journey to cloud, what, 7 or so years ago?
7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. And it's ERP, EPM, HCM?
Yep, we pretty much have all of the Oracle Cloud.
Now, that sounds like a lot of change. Culturally, how did you get organized around being able to bring that level of transformation internally to Hurst?
Yeah, when we started, which was 7 or 8 years ago, we kind of underinvested, I would say, in finance over the years, and we went from technologies from the early 90s that were literally green screen. We didn't have any mandates around harmonization or standardization, and then we leaped forward, 20 plus years in terms of capabilities and technology and processes. So we went through a harmonization effort, and clearly the initial implementation, you kind of touched on it, there's a big investment to get to the cloud. And back then, 8 years ago, the big debate that we had internally was the cloud ready? Was somebody ready for our size and complexity to be in a SaaS type environment? And we ended up picking Oracle. But that initial investment, right, you kind of have to do it to get to the starting gate, if you will. Mm-hmm. And there was a ton of change that happened as part of that. But then you get there, and then you start realizing that with the quarterly updates, and there's a continuous cycle of improvement and looking at things. Where are we inefficient? What can we do more efficiently? What are the capabilities that are coming out? So it's kind of, I view it as it gets you to the starting gate, but I would argue that most of the innovation and improvements has happened since we went live. And like everything, when you start one of these programs, as smart as we all are, you think you identify everything that you need, and you write requirements and design documents and everything else, and then you get to go live, and you're like, geez, that wasn't all of the things that I thought there's another set of things that we need to focus on. So getting to the starting point is important.
Yes. Now, our strategic theme this week, this conference, is AI-driven finance. And again, it's part and parcel of this continuous journey. So, two-part question. You've talked a little about the continuous journey, the continuous improvements. From a mindset standpoint, internal to Hurst, what changes did you have to make? Were there any organizational changes you had to put in place in order to really drive this continuous innovation? And second part, given the disruption of generative AI, how will that change some of the stuff you've already put in place, potentially going forward?
Right. So I think on the first part of the question, it's part of my responsibility, and certainly my team's responsibility, is we need to help. And I think Safra said, do more with less, right? How do you become more efficient? How do we continue to look at opportunities to automate, the best work is the stuff you don't do anymore. You just get rid of it. But then you streamline processes, you automate, you integrate, you do all kinds of things, you leverage new capabilities. So I think part of my team's responsibility is doing just that. And our business groups, I would argue, are fairly receptive, right? It's part of the value that we bring to them. They're our customers. I don't go and meet with external customers. My customers are all internal, and they tend to be unfiltered when they're unhappy with something. So we get that feedback. On the Gen AI side, it's interesting because being a media company, I would argue it's kind of, we're looking at it in kind of 3 distinct buckets. The first thing is obviously if you're in media and there's content, the question is how do you govern the content that gets created by our media businesses? and how do we protect the content that we generate from being used elsewhere. There's a bunch of lawsuits that are going to play out, I think, over the next several years around content creators and so forth. So that's one bucket that it's not my world, the smart people are looking at that. The second thing is the business media businesses that are software-driven and data-driven. They're looking at it and say, how do we embed these capabilities in the products that we sell to our customers? And then the third, last but not least, is how do we leverage internally, right? And that's where my focus is, specifically on the finance side. We have people looking at sales and marketing, finance, HR, et cetera. But it's really how do we leverage this new technology? And you guys kind of nail it. I think to me, it's about efficiency and insight. Rhonda, you talked about the efficiency of these agents. How do you get touchless operations? You talked about the insights that you generate. Either it's somebody that wants to interact with data in a more English language type model, or you want a narrative written about what you actually did. We are big into dashboards around our financial results, and my boss, our CFO, would say, we have dashboards for every question that somebody's ever asked, but we don't have the next one. So when somebody asks a new question, what do? We run around and we build more dashboards, right? If we can do those things dynamically, where there's a question of analyzing the data and getting that would be, save us a lot of time. And I think that's right. I call it the consumerization of FP&A, right? How do we put these things without having a small army of dashboard developers and other things, behind the scenes? How do we put this technology into the hands of users that may not be super sophisticated, that wouldn't be able to go and do this themselves? So I'm excited about that.
Okay.
Okay, so David, I understand that you are actually going to repeat the same journey on a new business unit that's quite different from your core Hurst. So tell me a little bit about how you're actually approaching that. Given basically what you have learned as well as all these new capabilities that you hear about, how would you recommend them to approach that today in 2024?
What Ron is referring to, you guys may have heard of Fitch Group or Fitch Ratings, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Hurst. They have a fairly aging on-premise application with a 3-letter acronym and blue background. And it's interesting. So we're now at the point where they're I was actually thinking about it earlier. We've been in this thing for 6 or 7 years. Normally, this is where we started planning the upgrade, right? Now you got to get funding and a project team together to do an upgrade, which we obviously don't have to do. But they're a little bit in the same mentality, and I think there's 2 things that stand out. I mean, they're a little bit of a different business. They're very global in nature. But what stands out to me is there's 2 mindsets. One is the desire to customize, right? If you had the keys and you customize things, you tend to do it over again, right? And I'm happy to say that we're almost 100% vanilla across our Oracle Cloud footprint. And the second thing is, back to earlier point of you get to the starting point and then you continue to innovate. It's more of the legacy mindset that if I don't get these capabilities now, I'll never get them. So we got to pile everything under the sun we have to go live. And I kind of liken it to launching the space shuttle, right? You make something so complicated with such a list that any little fault is going to make you delay, and delay is costly. So how do you kind of manage those expectations that it's not a one and done, it's a continuous journey? And I think that's what's been successful for us.
Yeah, clearly. So David, we have been talking regularly anyway, since you have deployed the applications and continue on consuming the applications in different ways. I know that you know many of my product managers on a first-name basis on speed dial. I'll speak soon. Now, help me understand your perspective of what this kind of relationship and partnership means to you and your continuous innovation journey.
It's interesting. I think Safra actually this morning said another thing. She used the term business partner. And I think business partner is an easy term to throw around because we all have many business partners. But the behavior of a business partner is different, right? It's easy to say, it's hard to live up to. And the relationship with you guys, you're running our applications, you're enhancing our applications with quarterly updates, you're patching our applications for security and other things. But that's not being a business partner, right? The business partner is the engagement that we have with you guys, right? Both of you have personally gotten involved and we have questions, and sometimes it's urgent, sometimes it's less urgent. But having the engagement with you and your teams is hugely beneficial to us. We were in a session 6 months ago, and I always feel bad, but I sent Randy a note and I put urgent in the subject line. And we had an expert on the phone within 12 hours to explain how Oracle looked at some fairly complicated FX accounting and reporting. And it's that kind of relationship that I think is what it means to be a business partner. And from my perspective, it's a great relationship. You guys continue to be great business partners to us.
That's great.
Great. You've been one of our more successful implementations across the board in terms of size, scale, and obviously the effectiveness at how it's been done. So before we let you go, is there any pearls of wisdom you can give to the crowd as they start their journeys?
I think sitting on the sidelines I do think, going back to, you guys said it again, right? We went into this environment and we have a consistent chart of accounts, we have consistent data, we have consistent processes. What it allows us to do is the innovations that we can then take up. We can build these Gen AI models that don't have to be unique for every single business group because we're the same. So I think the whole notion around when everybody says, oh, we need to harmonize, we're going to do this, and everybody's like, why? It's hard, right? It's difficult to do that and get consensus. But the benefits, I think, are huge. Our quarterly updates are almost non-events. We don't spend a lot of time testing. Right? And the ability to take these things up, I think, it's important. So I would say, harmonization, standardization, terms also get thrown around, but it does have a tremendous amount of benefit and no customizations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining. Okay. So clearly, lots and lots of coverage on AI and Gen AI in this particular conference. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that in addition to the Gen AI investments, we're doing a lot of innovations, in particular those that you specifically requested Oracle take a look at. We have been partnering with our customers. More than 60% of the 1,500 features in the last 4 quarters are coming directly and indirectly from you customers, including our online Customer Connect Idea Lab forum. So very excited about the innovations across the board, some of them very sophisticated advanced capabilities, but we also have some that are specific for targeted industries, professional services, healthcare, public sector, higher ed, and so on. So now, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of these innovations then?
Sure, I'll tell you about. I'll pick on 1 or 2 because I know we're up against the clock. So in financials, if you look at say multi-tier intercompany operations, really for large multinational organizations, a way of establishing funding operations by leveraging intercompany as agreements in place between trading partners. It's something that we dipped our toe into in the on-premise world, but this blows it out of the water in terms of sophistication and level of detail that we have in that space. Another one is fundamentally the multiple payment gateways. So now you can segregate your payment gateways by customer preference, or maybe by currency, or maybe by geography, et cetera. All of this is really helping to avoid disruption and fundamentally potential revenue loss in that standpoint. You mentioned industries. You could take a look at the budgetary control at the task level that we've done in project management. This was the highest rated in idea that we had on Customer Connect. Fundamentally geared towards heavily regulated industries that they can actually have spend control at a much lower grain across the organization. So think about healthcare, higher education as areas where this is applicable. If I switch back to EPM, given that I run the EPM group, we are very, very proud of the work we've done in sustainability. We're very proud of the work that we're doing in Pillar 2 tax. So it's increasing that content, that richness of application space that we're looking to go after. If you need more information on these are the highlighted sessions you should get to. You can use the QR code in the top corner to get a full list of all the sessions that are in place. I highly recommend that you get out of here fairly quickly and across to the 4 o'clock session this afternoon, where Hurst will go down through the ERP, financial strategy and innovation roadmap. And I also want to call out the EPM strategy and innovation roadmap on Wednesday. This was oversubscribed so much, we, on behalf of you, have now running it twice. Both at the same time, 2 different speakers, the first time ever at an Oracle CloudWorld where we have the same session been run concurrently. So you've got the opportunity to go see somebody live talk about those 2 particular strategy investment at that level. So again, thank you so much for visiting us today. I hope you have a wonderful conference, and do take advantage of those sessions that we've called out.
Thank you very much for coming.